Hi, students. Today we're going to talk about the coordinate plane. Okay, this is the fancy name for it. The coordinate plane, that's the fancy, proper math name for it. But some teachers will call this a graph. Okay, just a regular graph. All right, it's a 2D system, which a location or a point is described by its distance from the two perpendicular lines called axes. Okay, so um, m- most of you are used to hearing that we give you 2 points and we ask you, or two numbers, a number, comma, another number, and we tell you to put a dot where that point is. So first off, it has axes. Okay, the horizontal line is called the x-axis. The vertical line is called the y-axis. Okay, and it has four sections. That's the main thing. It has four sections, and you can see these four sections are labeled quadrants. So we have quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice they are labeled using Roman numerals. Okay, we don't use the regular number 1, 2, 3, 4 that we use every day. We use Roman numerals for this. And then your points are always labeled x comma y. So x comma y values tell you how far the origin a point is located, how far from the origin a point is located. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's focus on the quadrant. So you've got quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, quadrant 1 is going to have where both your numbers are going to be positive and positive numbers. Quadrant 2, the first number will always be negative and the second number will always be positive. In quadrant 3, both numbers will always be negative. And in quadrant 4, the first number will be positive and the second number will be negative. Okay. So that's kind of, if you memorize that, that helps you know what quadrant these are going to be in. And you have to memorize the quadrants. Okay. So if you remember that this one is quadrant 1 with both positives, then you can just go counterclockwise, the backwards from the way a clock goes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now let's talk about actually using points or numbers to plot a point. Okay, so what does the x comma y values really mean? Well, the x-axis runs horizontal. So the x value, the first number is always going to tell you which way to go, left or right. And then the y value, the second number is always going to tell you which way to run, up or down. Okay, and so let's do some practice on that. Let me get to some practice problems. And oops, I thought I had it pulled up correctly, but let me find it real quick. Okay, so let's graph some points. So here I have -8 comma 6. Okay, you see it right here. It says graph the point -8 comma 6. So I'm always going to start at 0, which is the center of the graph where the two axes cross, where the x-axis and the y-axis cross. That's called the origin, the 0, 0. I always start here. Now the first number tells me which way to move, left or right. So that -8. That tells me I'm going to move -8 spaces on this axis. Okay, so well, negative on this axis is to the left, so I'm going to move to the left 8 spaces and I'm going to stop. Okay, now my second number is +6. So now I'm going to pick up this dot and I'm going to go +6 in the y direction because the second number represents your y direction. So +6 is up in the y axis. So up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's where my dot's going to be. I only put one dot on the paper. It's the final place that I went. So I started at 0 and I went -8 according to the first number on the x axis. And then I went +6 according to the second number on the y axis and then made my dot. That's my final resting place for my dot. That should be where it's supposed to be. Okay, let's try this one. -3 comma 9. So start at 0. Remember the first number tells you which direction to go, left or right. It's -3, so I'm going to go to the left 3 spaces. I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to look at the second number, which is +9. That's going to tell me to go up or down because I need to go in the y direction now. So that's a +9. So I'm going to go up 9 spaces. So up 9. And there's where my final spot for my dot is. Okay. So again, started at the origin. I went to the left 3 in the x direction. And then we went +9 in the y direction. And that was my final spot for my dot. You try this. Tell me first, where would I go for this one? This is negative 6 comma 6. So starting at the origin, should I go to the left or to the right? The first number is negative 6. I'm going to go to the left 6 spaces. One. Okay. Now my second number is positive 6. So should I go up or down 6 spaces? It's positive. So I should go up. And there's my final spot. So I went negative 6 up positive 6. That's my final dot space. Okay. How about this one? What do you think? Which direction would I go first? It's negative 3. So I'm going to go to the left 3. And then negative 4. I'm going to go down 4 spaces. So it's not a positive 4, it's a negative 4. So that means I'm going to go down to negative 4. Okay. And notice this is a negative number and a negative number. What quadrant should my two negative numbers be in? Quadrant 3, this section, if you look back at my notes. So negative and a negative. If both numbers are negative, my dot should be somewhere in this quadrant. Okay. So that's your clue. Also, if you know your quadrants and that they both should be negative, that'll help you make sure your dot is in the right area at least. Okay. This one, negative 5 comma negative 5. Tell me, which direction should I go? So I'm going to start at 0. I'm going to go negative 5, so to the left 5. And then I'm going to go negative 5 some more, so down 5. And there I go. That's negative 5 comma negative 5. Okay. This one is a positive 1 comma negative 10. So positive 1 comma negative 10. So start at 0. The first direction I'm going to go is left or right. Now that's positive 1. So which direction would that be? Positive 1 would be to the right, just one space. And then negative 10. Negative 10, that tells me I'm going to go down 10 spaces, and there's where my dot should be. And notice it had a positive number, comma, a negative number. And if you look back at my notes, quadrant 4, the first number should be positive and the second number should be negative. So that can also help you, again, make sure you're in the correct section at least of the coordinate plane. Let's try a couple more. Negative 6 comma 6. So start at 0. Tell me, which direction should I go? I'm going to go negative 6, so to the left 6, then positive 6, so up 6. And there's my dot. Okay. 2 comma negative 5. So 2 comma negative 5. Start at 0, positive 2, so to the right 2, comma negative 5, so down 5. There's my dot. Ooh, now we're talking decimals. Okay. So decimals aren't too different. Okay. So you can start at 0. And this one says 2.5 comma 0.5. So 2.5, I know that's equivalent to 2.5. So it's positive 2. So I'm going to go in the positive direction, which will be to the right, but 2.5 spaces. Okay. So that's one space, 2 spaces, and half a space. So there's half a space. There's where my dot is. That's 2.5. But then the second number is 0.5. So that's a half. So am I going to go a full space down or full space up actually, because that's positive? Am I going to go full space up? No, I'm actually going to go half a space up. So there we go. There's where my dot is, and I need to delete that other dot. So there's where my dot is. That is positive 2.5 and positive half. Okay, that was the first point that I have right here. So that dot did not fall on where the lines crossed, did it? It doesn't, because they're not all whole numbers. If you have all whole numbers, you'll probably cross where the lines are. But if you have decimals or fractions, you probably won't. So let's look on this one. Negative 4.5, comma, positive 4.5. So start at 0. So I'm going to go negative 4.5 spaces. So negative 4 and half a space. And then I'm going to go positive 4 and half a space. So positive 4 and half a space. And there's where my dot is. I'm going to delete that other dot. So there's that second dot. Again, they're both decimals, so that's okay that my dot is in the middle of the lines, okay? Only when you have decimals and fractions will your dots sometimes be in the middle of the lines. If you have all whole numbers and all integers, it should be where it crosses. see if we can do one more. Okay, so 2 comma -9. So start at 0. Tell me which direction to go. So 2, +2, -9. So down 9. And there you go. All right, the next one, -1 comma -10. Start at 0, -1, to the left 1, -10. So down 10. Okay, and then the last one, 7 comma 6. Start at 0. Tell me which direction to go. I'm going to go +7, so to the right 7, and then +6, which is up 6. And I'm in quadrant 1. And notice 7 comma 6, those are both positive. So both positive numbers, they ended up in quadrant 1, just like my notes say. The second dot was negative and a negative. Well, that dot ended up in quadrant 3, just like it was supposed to. And +2 comma -9. So the first number was positive, but the second number was negative. It ended up in quadrant 4, just like it was supposed to. Okay. I hope that helped you learn how to graph points and recognize what quadrant is what. Again, you're going to have to memorize this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And make sure you practice on graphing points.